Republic and azcentral.com. I'm state politics reporter Dustin Gardner, and I'll be your moderator tonight. Thank you for joining us on Facebook live stream at azcentral.com. Tonight we'll hear from 4 candidates running for Phoenix Mayor in the November 6th election. They are Moses Sanchez, who runs a family marketing company and is a Navy veteran, Nicholas Sarwark, who runs a family car dealership, Gallego, a former city councilwoman and a former planner for the Salt River Project, and Daniel Valenzuela, a former city councilman and current Glendale firefighter. But before we get started, a couple of ground rules. Candidates will each have 1 minute to respond to questions. Before we do that, we'll have 1 minute opening and closing statements. Our discussion tonight will cover a wide range of issues. For each question, candidates will have 1 minute, and then we'll open the floor to an open discussion. During that open discussion, responses will be limited to 20 seconds. We'll start with an opening statement from Nicholas Sarwark.
Good evening. Thank you to the Arizona Republic for putting this debate on. My name is Nicholas Sarwark. In 1942, my grandfather came here with one lung that he had lost to tuberculosis, the money in his pocket, and he built a thriving family business. This city is a place where people can come and build their dreams. And I know that as a native Phoenician, a third-generation Phoenician, I wanted to move back here to take over the day-to-day operations of that car dealership, to raise my 4 children with my wife Valerie, 3 of whom go to Phoenix public schools. The issues that Phoenix has are the same issues that everybody has. We have to balance our budget and live within our means. We have to focus on core city services and make this city a city of opportunity again. A city where people can come, build a dream, build a business, raise a family, and we show responsibility and stewardship of our city resources. We have a government that works for all 518 square miles of the city, not just the space in central downtown between 7 and 7.
Moses Sanchez.
Good evening. My name is Moses Sanchez. I'm an immigrant from Panama, a Navy veteran of 22 years, 4 years active duty, 1 tour in Afghanistan in 2011. I'm also a teacher at South Mountain Community College. I'm a business owner of a small company that started off with just 2 of us. Today we're a company of 12 with a staff and a payroll contributing back to society. I'm running for mayor of Phoenix because I, like many Phoenix families, am sick and tired of the failed leadership policies of City Hall. You deserve so much better than what we're having.
Gallego.
Thank you to the Arizona Republic, AZ Central, and Dustin Gardner for having us tonight. It's good to have you back in the city world.
Thank you.
I'm Kate Gallego. I have had the pleasure of serving for 5 years on the Phoenix City Council, representing a district that included downtown, South Phoenix, Laveen, and the airport area. Those areas of Phoenix have been leading in job creation and infrastructure investment. I want to bring that same record of success to the entire city. I want to build a city where my family and yours can thrive, where my son can have great educational opportunities, parks, libraries, healthcare options. When he grows up, he can have a job that makes a good wage and where he can raise his family and enjoy Phoenix. I'm proud of what we've done on the Phoenix City Council, and I look forward to taking my experience as the next mayor of Phoenix to build a city of Phoenix that works for everyone.
Daniel Valenzuela.
Thank you so much. I seek the office of mayor for the same reason I became a firefighter, to serve, to give back to a community that has given me so much. Raised primarily by a single mom with the help of the church and great organizations, I want to continue to give back to the city of Phoenix, to my hometown, to our Phoenix, by keeping people safe, continue to bring high-wage jobs to Phoenix, and of course expand educational opportunities for all of our students. I look forward to our discussion.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for coming tonight, everybody. The first question is going to deal with the subject of police shootings. This year, Phoenix has set an unfortunate record. We've seen a record number of officer-involved shootings. So far, just into October, we've seen 38 shootings this year. That far exceeds the previous record of 31 that was set in 2013. What do you think is behind this unfortunate statistic, and how specifically would you address it as mayor? And we'll start with Kate Gallego.
Thank you. This is a very important question. We've lost a lot of people, and it's so hard to hear from their families. Particularly, we've had a lot of mothers who've come forward and say, what can you do? In talking with law enforcement experts as well as families and people who've been impacted personally, I'm putting forward a plan focused on transparency, technology, and training, because we want to get to 0 shootings. We want every police officer to be able to come home safely and everyone in our city to be able to come home safely. Transparency is very important. When something does occur, we should get information out into the community as quickly as possible so that we can have an honest conversation about what happened and what's the appropriate response. We need to invest in technology such as body cameras so that we have an accurate record about what has happened. We also need more training. With the rise in opioid addiction and other drug problems, mental health, we need to make sure our officers have the best training possible to understand how to react in those situations. I was a strong supporter of the crisis intervention squads, and I would like to see that type of deep training expanded so that our officers have the very best tools available.
Okay, Daniel Valenzuela.
Thank you, Dustin. This is very important. This is not where the city of Phoenix should be breaking records. Obviously, part of the problem and where we need leadership is we need someone who's going to bring this community together, extract the politics out of this issue, and of course, to move our city forward. I've shown that I can do that. Far too often when we hear of another shooting, far too often, there are people in our community that assume they know exactly what happened or who is at fault, whether it is the police officer or the other person. It doesn't always work that way. But we need someone who's not afraid to actually, again, invite people to the table, using technology. And actually the body cam program started in my district when I was first elected. I brought the body cam program into Maryville, and that's something that I'm hoping that we see citywide moving forward. But it starts with conversations.
Okay, Moses Sanchez, what do you think is behind this record of officer-involved shootings, and how would you address it as mayor?
Well, we all know here in Phoenix that our public safety and first responders are severely understaffed and undersupported. We're looking at record highs in the homicide rate. A lot of these records that we're setting, they didn't just happen overnight. These are things that my city hall opponents were on city council when it started. And unfortunately, our public service and public safety officers have not received the proper manning, training, and equipment they need to do their jobs. I'm a big advocate for community-based policing. When a police officer steps out of his or her vehicle, the community should know who that police officer is and trust that police officer. They can't do that right now because they're severely understaffed. So instead what you get is you get drive-by policing. This is unacceptable. This is exactly how we get to the problems that we're at right now. So not only am I a huge advocate for community-based policing, but I'm also an advocate for improving our booking efficiency.
Okay, Nicholas Sarwark.
So the police shooting record that we have in the city of Phoenix is not something that other cities haven't already dealt with. Philadelphia had the same problem going back about 5 years, and they brought in, through a Justice Department grant, an outside independent consultancy to find out what the problems were, to have an open and transparent discussion and a dialogue with the entire community, where the result of that dialogue is not pre-planned, it's not already baked in, and the community felt like they were heard. What you have to do is actually open up these conversations and find out the root causes of why there is so much tension between the police force and the communities they serve. They dropped their shooting rate in half from the record that it was at. Those kind of things can work, but what I've heard up here is no one is even willing to acknowledge that there's a problem. It's all empty platitudes about conversations and, you know, this is really important. We got to bring people together. We need a mayor who actually deals with these problems with the whole community.
Okay, let's open it for open discussion. Anyone want to jump in with a question or follow up to what was just said?
Sure. I actually agree. I think community review boards are really important. These are some of the best practices that we've had across the country. When you look at other cities that have had this problem, bringing in not necessarily law enforcement officials, but people outside of law enforcement, I would advocate for perhaps a retired first responder to be on board one of these community review boards. But we need to look at these situations one by one, and I'm an advocate for community review boards. Just like I said, community-based policing is also important. But at the end of the day, when there's only one police officer in one vehicle, you're going to have some problems. We really need to properly man our police force, and we're not doing that right now.
Anyone else want to jump in on this?
Yeah,
Daniel?
well, there are some, again, there are some fundamental issues here, and we're seeing it throughout the nation, and we've actually are hearing about it here in Phoenix. We have an officer-involved shooting, and again, immediately, without checking to see if there's any body cam footage or trying to figure out what the reports are, far too many people in our community are assuming they know what happened. But we actually need someone, a mayor, who's going to bring the community together to actually have a conversation. We have a study going out right now. I am for that study. This is an opportunity for us to actually bring a third party in, and not everyone is happy about this. I remember when I voted for this at the city council, we had several people on both sides of the issue that were not happy that we're going this far, but this is what it's going to take.
Okay. Anyone else?
Many
Kate?
of these shootings have occurred in situations where there were multiple officers present, so it wasn't a manpower issue. There were often individuals who were experiencing mental health crises or were in the middle of using narcotics. And so it's about training. Is there opportunities to de-escalate, but also prevention? We are seeing higher and higher rates of drug addiction. What can we do to go upstream and go after the dealers, try to reduce those in our community? I was also proud to support a lawsuit going after opioid manufacturers. I hope we can take that money and put it back into our community to address these situations. We don't want to see another family heartbroken.
Okay. Nicholas?
One last thing. I would ask my two opponents who are on the city council, why don't we have 100% body cams in the city of Phoenix? We know that body cams are going to provide actual objective video evidence about what happened, and they serve to diffuse tension in situations where the shooting was justified, and they serve to provide some level of trust in the public that these things aren't being whitewashed, that it's not something where the report is being cooked up in a back room and nobody knows because the only other witness is dead.
Well,
I'd like to answer
Kate
that
and
question.
Danny, you've been on the
Yeah.
council. Why don't we have full body camera coverage yet?
Well, as
Go
I
ahead,
mentioned,
Danny.
and as a first responder myself, I will tell you that it's important to have that type of technology in the field. And so it was something that I fought for from the very beginning. I took office January 3rd, 2012. The Maryville Police Precinct is one of the precincts that touched the district that I represented in Central and West Phoenix, and that's where the pilot began. Now, it is a conversation that we continue to have and have had at City Hall. I'm not happy with the fact that we don't have body cam citywide. I continue to push for it. I'm not the only one who has. As I mentioned, hopefully this year, because this conversation is being had at City Hall, hopefully this year is when this actually happens. But I will tell you, as mayor, as a person who sets the agenda, it will absolutely happen if it hasn't already by the time I get there.
Kay Gallego, why do you think this hasn't happened yet? Let's get specific here.
So both Daniel and myself have voted for full deployment of body cameras on the officers in the streets. As a lawyer, you might be amused to know part of the reason we don't have body cameras everywhere is there was significant litigation over the procurement. And there was also a dialogue with officers who had some concerns about technology and in the field testing. They wanted the very best. The chief decided, based on several different pieces of feedback and then advances in technology, that she wanted to do a new procurement, which I think will lead to great advances for the city of Phoenix. There's been some real technology investments that allow us to process data and capture it. What's expensive about body cameras is not the camera, it's the data and the processing. It actually takes people going screen by screen through the data and processing it with the original technology, and now there's more advanced tools that allow that to be done more automatically so that we don't have to divert resources for people going screen by screen, and we can get that footage and process it more quickly. As a reporter who does public records requests, I'm sure you will appreciate the value in
Absolutely.
getting that data out more quickly, as will the community who wants to know what happened.
Okay, Moses,
I'm
let's
sorry,
round this
Dustin.
out.
I mean, you're talking about over 10 years of experience here at City Hall, and the situation's worse today than it was when they first got there. And quite often, it is a manpower problem. You know, in my community, we have 5 patrols in Ahwatukee. 2 of those are stationed on the north side of South Mountain. So we really have 3 patrols in a community of about 100,000 people. And you heard the chief of police the other day say that every 10 minutes there's a phone call for domestic violence. Every 10 minutes. That's a serious problem to have this manpower shortage. Okay? Properly man, properly train, and properly equip our public responders.
Okay, let's get into officer hiring a little bit more. The city is still hundreds of officers below where it was before the recession when there was a hiring freeze. That freeze has been lifted. The city's in the process of hiring hundreds of officers, but City Hall still tells us that there isn't enough money to hire as many officers as we had before the recession in 2007. So why do you think this, or let's start it this way. Do you think the city is doing enough to hire police? Why or why not? And let's start with Nicholas Sarwark.
Okay, so public safety, first responders are 67% of the city budget. The reason that we have not been able to get back to hiring is this city council doesn't actually balance their checkbook. They don't have a responsible way to spend the money. We have $100 million plus a year shortfall in the pension fund for the first responders who have already served Phoenix. And what the city council chose to do was push that out 30 years at a cost of $2.3 billion extra dollars. We need to start living within our means as a city if we're going to have public safety get back to where it was before the recession. We're more than a decade after the recession. It is too late to just say the recession, the recession, the recession. We need to actually focus our priorities, which means making tough choices like you have to make at a business where you don't get to go say, I'm going to add a new tax, I'm going to float a new bond issue, I'm going to pick pockets out of Phoenix families in order to make up for my fiscal irresponsibility.
Okay, Moses Sanchez, same question.
I think, unfortunately, this situation isn't about resources as much as it is about priorities. My City Hall opponents just didn't make public safety a priority. They haven't made public safety a priority. I mean, you look at this last budget cycle where City Hall found $2.9 million. What did we do with that? I went to the budget hearings, and when you hear 60–70% of the audience going up to the microphone talking about what's important to them, you hear police, you hear fire, you hear equipment breaking down. City Hall decided that this budget cycle, they'd spend 20% of that budget on trees. We spent less than that for police and less than that for fire. It's not just about resources, it's about priorities. Unfortunately, public safety hasn't been a priority. It's also about waste, too. We find a lot of waste and inefficiencies in City Hall. I mean, you guys did a wonderful story about the $3 million PR marketing scheme that went down recently. That's how many police officers and firefighters can we hire with that money?
Okay, let's go on to Daniel Valenzuela.
Well, as the person on this stage who actually has been endorsed by both police and fire, because I have made it a priority, I will take that on. Local government, or government, but I will speak for local government. It's hard work. We can talk about how it should be. At the end of the day, each of us are applying for the job of Mayor of Phoenix. Today, we need first responders. Today. Are we willing to make a decision today to hire those first responders? My answer is yes. I led the effort to lift the police hiring freeze. We have hundreds more first responders than we did just a few years ago today, right? It didn't take us 5 years. It took a problem solver to do that. That said, the issue here is more about recruitment. We refuse, rightfully so, to lower the standard for those who want to be a first responder in this city. We have to do a better job of getting out there across the country to get the right people in place who can come in and become a police officer.
Okay, Kate Gallego, has the city done enough?
When I announced my campaign for mayor, one of the very first policy I talked about was the need to do more public safety hiring. It has been a priority. It is by far the largest chunk of our general fund. We're spending real resources. We also need someone who has the experience to spend resources in a smart way. I've tried to advocate to make sure we have the full spectrum of investments in public safety. For example, I pushed for civilian police assistants that can do work such as directing traffic if traffic lights go out, or responding to put together a crime report if there's no longer an active crime scene. They can get there more quickly, more cost effectively, and free up our highly trained officers so that they can do the police work they got into. It's also important to make sure we invest in positions like lab technicians to process evidence. When I was elected to the Phoenix City Council, we had a very significant backlog of rape kits that women primarily, but some men had been tested, and we weren't processing those. So I pushed to make sure we had the resources to process those kits, and we were able to get results and convict rapists because of that.
Okay, let's open up the floor. Who wants to jump in on this one? Nicholas.
I would ask both of my opponents who've been on city council, how are you going to pay for new hires? How are you going to pay for it? Because we have a budget that is never in balance, that has a structural deficit. Where's the money going to come from when we can't afford to pay the pensions for the police and firefighters who already serve the city?
Kate, you want to jump in?
The city charter requires us to have a balanced budget, and so we do that every year. I would disagree with Moses's characterization of the budget that the discretionary money this year was $2.9 million. The actual biggest investment we made was in the Pension Stabilization Fund, a very significant investment in that area. So we're being strategic and looking at the resources we have. I do realize that we can't do everything, and there are some expenditures that I think you and I actually agree on. I think the two of us would probably put less money into professional sports than some of the other people who are running. It's funny, we've been spending a lot of time together, and it's when I'm agreeing with the national chairman of the Libertarian Party. Maybe that's good for democracy.
Okay, we'll definitely get to sports arenas. Moses, did you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about leadership. We talk about recruitment problems. You're going to get recruitment problems given the current state of affairs at City Hall. I mean, Phoenix Police, Phoenix Fire, our first responders are criticized publicly. This is the first generation of police officers that look at their sons and daughters and say, you know, you probably shouldn't be in my line of work anymore because it's demoralizing. Morale is low for our first responders. Not just our first responders, but city employees have low morale right now. Leadership has criticized them in public, praised in private, when we need to be doing the opposite of that. That's what real leaders do.
Daniel?
I totally disagree that our first responders are coming to work telling their kids, it's a calling. Our first responders, our police officers and firefighters are not telling their children, don't follow in my footsteps. It's a calling. It's service. And that's absolutely wrong. Excuse me, it's absolutely wrong. Now, we have some issues here, right? We have a pension debt. As opposed to just complaining about it or fighting about it, let's do something about it. I actually did. I led the effort for pension reform for our local city employees, and on the campaign side for the PSPRS system, which is the public safety pension system. Both passed. We are realizing savings now. It's going to take a while. These are pension debt. We're going to continue to make those reforms, but it's going to take someone who knows what they're doing there and with the track record. And the other thing is how we're going to pay for this. We're going to diversify.
Sorry, can we move on? We're a little bit over time here. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Light rail, debate over light rail has been an unexpected lightning rod at City Hall this year. The council just decided to move forward with the South Central line, and then a week later decided to essentially kill the line to Paradise Valley Mall. What is your vision for the future of public transit in the city, including bus and rail? Should Phoenix be expanding service? We'll start with Kate Gallego.
Thank you. I don't know that the debate over transportation infrastructure was unexpected. When we built the original light rail system, particularly on the Camelback corridor, there was a lot of debate there with businesses, and there continues to be debate with the 202 freeway and that construction. Anytime we do a major road construction, it's hard. Construction is not easy. But I think it's important that the city diversify our transportation options, and that's something that I will support and fight for as mayor of Phoenix. We spent a long time developing the Transportation 2050 plan with a distinguished committee of leaders from education, public safety, the nonprofit world, led by Mary Peters, who was Secretary of Transportation in the Bush administration. She's supporting my campaign because of my leadership in these issues. I'm going to keep fighting for us to keep our commitments that we made to the voters on the ballot. We need all the options. We are the second fastest growing city in the country.
Okay, let's go on to Nicholas Sarwark.
So I just took a trip to Austin, which is one of the most progressive cities in this country, and they've shot down light rail every single time it's come up. And the reason that they shoot it down is that rail, one, is not movable. It's going to be in the same track for 20 or 30 years, even if the economy shifts. Two, it is a transportation option that takes away from the other transportation options that people use every day because it operates at grade. All of the successful rail transit projects in this country and around the world are either elevated like Chicago or they're underground like New York. Having rail interact with bikes, with cars, with buses is a recipe for making people's lives harder. So we need to have options that work for all of Phoenix, not just people who live next to where the line's going to be put in.
Moses Sanchez?
Yeah, I'm a big advocate for public transportation. A lot of my students at South Mountain Community College use public transportation. Unfortunately, we could do a whole lot better than what we're doing right now. A lot of these students are standing at bus stops. Actually, they're not standing at the bus stop. They're standing next to a tree away from the bus stop because there's no shade at the bus stop. We can do significantly better by them. They also want to double the bus routes. They like the new Wi-Fi buses. Buses are a great system, and a lot of people in South Phoenix use the bus system. Unfortunately, for the light rail situation down there, a lot of the small businesses on Central, they were frustrated. They were misled when it came to this light rail situation going down South Phoenix. And I remember talking to a lot of these business owners who said, you know what, when we needed help, City Hall wasn't here to listen to us.
Okay, let's open this one up. Kate Gallego, the South Central line goes through part of your district. There's obviously frustrations that have been voiced. How do you respond to that?
I think we've also heard great support from people who live in the community. We have 2 concentrations of public housing in the city, and this light rail extension will serve one of them. These are individuals who live often without air conditioning. They don't have 2 cars in a garage, and they're thrilled at the opportunity that this would provide.
Sorry, but what about the people that feel like they've been left out of this planning process? We've heard that from business owners, community members in South Phoenix. How do you respond to them?
Valley Metro and the city had more than 100 meetings. We clearly could have done better, and we have learned a lot of lessons. We're also investing in a record amount of business assistance to try to support these businesses. Construction is tough, but I think this will be worth it for the community. It's a plan that will minimize the number of businesses where their buildings will be impacted by the South Central Light Rail, which was something the community asked for. They said, we want this to be a success for the people who are there today. It's very similar to the light rail extension through downtown Mesa, which many people say is one of the most walkable and urban feeling portions of the light rail in the entire system, and beautiful.
Nicholas, did you want to jump in on this?
So I went to the meetings that Valley Metro had where they basically showed us a video that said, this is why light rail's good, this is why you're wrong. They didn't take any public questions, and they shoved the plan through because there was hundreds of millions of dollars in potential federal grant money. They know that the businesses are going to close. The businesses closed along the line that goes out Washington and Jefferson down by 24th Street. Those businesses on Central Avenue will close. And when they say business support or business investment, what that means is they're going to waste your money on a train line that cannot be moved. They're going to shutter a bunch of small businesses running after federal money, stepping over the corpses of those business owners who built that part of the city, and then they're going to take some of your taxpayer money out of your pocket to give it to the business owners that they crush.
Dustin,
Moses, go ahead.
it was a simple question, and unfortunately, business owners in South Phoenix are still waiting for the answer to that. They had multiple meetings with hundreds of people there. I attended some of these meetings, and nobody at City Hall went down there to talk to them. Instead of being accessible to that community, they sent a consultant to go down and talk down to folks in South Phoenix and explain to them how 2 lanes are better than 4 lanes. Everywhere else in the city of Phoenix where we expanded light rail, in the city of Phoenix we expanded it at 4 lanes, except for South Phoenix. We're going to keep them down at 2 lanes. And you know what? They would have a voice if they contributed $5,000 checks to City Hall opponents up here, but they didn't do that, so they have no voice. That's who I'm fighting for.
Okay, Daniel, you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, of course. I will say that I'm a proponent for light rail. We have a strong return on investment. Nationally, the ROI for light rail is 4 to 1. We've seen the numbers as high as 7 to 1, the return on investment here in the Valley. So from Mesa to Tempe, downtown Phoenix, and so on. It's one of the largest catalysts for downtown Phoenix that we've been able to see here. So I support light rail for that reason. First and foremost, it also is a good opportunity to revitalize an entire community. I would make the argument that we should have started in South Phoenix. The other point is, yes, you can use it as a mode of transportation. I will say to your question, to your follow-up question, when we extended this on 19th Avenue, I will tell you personally, I got my haircut twice a week from 2 different barbershops. I got my groceries there, although I lived on a different part of town. It takes leadership, and it takes taking those tough shots every now and again. But communication with the community never, ever should be shelved. We have to continue moving that forward as a project moves forward.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next question. Speaking of downtown, there's been a lot of discussion about sports stadiums and arenas for the Phoenix Suns, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Phoenix invested a lot of money in helping the Suns build their last facility. The city's under pressure to help the Suns out again, if not build a new arena, to significantly renovate the arena they have. What role should Phoenix play in future plans for current sports teams that want new arenas in the downtown area? Should taxpayer money be used as an incentive to help professional teams build sports stadiums? Let's start with Daniel Valenzuela.
Thank you, Dustin. You know, the days of the public fully funding an arena for a sports team, those days are over. Certainly in Phoenix, they're over. I think of a ballpark in the district that I represented for 6.5 years, the Maryville Baseball Stadium. For those baseball fans, this is going to be a great place to watch a spring training baseball stadium. But by sitting down with the organization, in this case the Brewers, by sitting down with the organization, this is a city-owned facility, much like the Suns Arena. Okay, city-owned facility. The Brewers made an impact. $60 million is what they invested immediately. More than 80%.
But what about the Suns and the Diamondbacks downtown?
But I'm giving you an idea here
Okay.
of what it should look like. We need a new model for downtown. We have to understand that this Suns Arena, and something that no one's talking about here, it's a city-owned facility. This is an economic driver, right? I'm not suggesting that the city of Phoenix pays the entire bill. I am suggesting that as the mayor of the city of Phoenix, you have to be willing to at least sit down with this organization to see what can be worked out.
Okay, Kate Gallego, where do you stand on that? Should there be any taxpayer support for new sports arenas or stadiums downtown?
I've shared Sun season tickets with my friends. I enjoy having the Suns and Diamondbacks in downtown, but we have to prioritize. Professional sports are among the most profitable enterprises out there, and they should be footing the bills for their facilities. I have supported some minor upgrades in plumbing and things to keep our investment safe, but I'd like to see the professional sports teams, which are going to get the upside of this investment, lead the way and pay for those. I don't know what Daniel is speaking about when he talks about the days are over of spending 100% taxpayer dollars on these facilities, because I don't believe we've done that. The Suns did pay for part of the original building, but the fact of the matter is that we're subsidizing it millions and millions of dollars every year, and there are other needs that are more urgent.
Okay, we'll come back to that. First, let's get Nicholas Sarwark. What are your thoughts on this?
So I am the only candidate in this race who will say unequivocally to the people of Phoenix, I will not support taking any money out of your pocket and putting it in the pocket of a sports team owner. Our family loves sports. We love going to football games and baseball games and basketball games. You know what we do? We buy tickets. The people of Phoenix who don't go down to watch a game shouldn't pay for a sports team owner to have a big facility. The city is not good at investing your money in real estate. There's a building just north of here that perfectly exemplifies that. The city bought a hotel, built it, lost money on it every year, lost money on it selling it, and then gave a long-term tax break to the people they sold it to just as it was making a profit. Investing in arenas and stadiums is not what City Hall should do. City Hall should govern. These projects, they do it with your money, and then when they screw it up, your money's the money that they lose, and when they're successful, a developer or a team owner is the one that makes the money.
Moses Sanchez.
I just find it ironic when I hear someone say that they're opposed to giving tax incentives and tax breaks to the Suns when they give tax breaks and incentives to every developer that writes them a max contribution check. I don't like the idea of being pigeonholed into option A or option B. Option A, you have to give them public dollars to renovate. Or option B, they're going to leave. As a business owner, I like option C, option D, option E. Here's an option. How about we sell the Suns? I would love to sell the Suns Arena back to the Suns. I would like to make them an offer they can't refuse. That does a couple of things for us. One, now we can collect property taxes on that arena at a significant amount. Two, It gets us out of the arena industry. Why are we in the arena industry anyways? We shouldn't be in the arena industry. We shouldn't be in the hotel industry. We should be providing basic core services to our residents. We're not brilliant at that. We should be brilliant at the basics.
Okay, we're going to open this up here. Daniel, you were shaking your head. 20 seconds. Why is that wrong?
Well, because it's not that simple to just simply sell the arena back to the Phoenix Suns. That is, I do appreciate the fact that Moses is willing to actually have a conversation, because when you're the mayor of the city of Phoenix, speaking in absolutes and just simply saying it is absolutely wrong to do A, B, or C, which is what we saw out of you, Kate, not only for the Suns arena, but you actually voted against a $60 million investment in a place like Maryville when they needed it, when this organization, when this community needed it.
Okay, we're time. Kate Gallego, you want to
I just
respond?
think we have limited resources. We can't go back to the taxpayers again and again. We should prioritize, and professional sports are not my top priority. These are people with hundreds of millions of dollars or billionaires who own these teams. I want to fight for the everyday Phoenicians. That's who I care about. And I believe that their professional sports are so profitable, they will find a way to get it done. Downtown Phoenix is a wonderful place to have a team. I welcome them there, but they should make the investment. They're going to profit from it.
Okay, Nicholas, Moses, anyone want to jump in?
So I will say it again, absolutely. I do not support reaching into the Phoenix taxpayers' pocket to take any money to give it to a sports team owners, whether it's the Suns or the Diamondbacks or the Brewers or anybody. That should be something that your public servant should speak in absolutes. You trust city government with your money to provide core services, not to give favors to their friends and pick winners and losers.
Okay, Moses, you want to round this one out?
It's about priorities, and unfortunately, my City Hall opponents, their priorities haven't been what regular Phoenix families need. Public safety, infrastructure, our streets, our roads, our sidewalks, quality of life issues, your public pools, your libraries, your parks and rec, homelessness. These are all issues that they haven't made a priority, and now they're talking about priorities.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. And I want to talk about tax subsidies for developers, especially in downtown Phoenix. There's been a lot of controversy over the last decade, especially the last 5 years, dealing with Giblets, which is kind of a fancy long word for basically a property tax break that a lot of developers have received to build buildings downtown. What role should these incentives continue to play downtown, given the construction boom? Do you think property tax incentives are still necessary? Why or why not? And we'll start with Moses Sanchez.
I am not a fan of the giblets, of those tax incentives. When I served on the Tempe Union High School District Governing Board, one of the biggest frustrations for educators and governing board members are those tax breaks and tax incentives, because they rob our public schools of money. And there are members from City Hall up here right now who couldn't say no to a single one of those things. They robbed our schools, our public schools here in Phoenix, of millions of dollars. And we just can't have that. I understand some people will say it's a tool. It's a tool. We have a lot of tools. How about vibrant communities? How about great neighborhoods? How about great schools? We can't have those other tools at your disposal if you're robbing some of those schools. So I'm not a fan of those tax incentives. I would not use them as freely as some of my City Hall opponents.
Okay, Daniel Valenzuela.
It is a tool, and I'm not sure what Moses just said. Is he going to use them? Is he not going to use them? Maybe use them not infrequently. I'm not quite sure. What I will tell you is we don't have many tools here in Arizona for something like that. I've never, as someone who's actually chaired the economic development arm of the City Council, I've never led a conversation with the tax break. I think we have a lot to offer. I always lead with talent. I always talk about the amount of talent we have here in downtown Phoenix, creating an environment that invites talent, which then invites those companies. We are now building a grocery store in downtown Phoenix. It's going to be part of a larger project that will have the most modern tech space that we have in Phoenix. That took a Giblet, which helps us continue to become this vibrant community and this community that people want to be a part of. So in the past, the city, and before my time even, the city has supported lots of these projects. We are in a time now where we really need to be really drilling down into the quality of life, quality projects as we move forward.
Okay, Gallego, do we still need these property tax breaks downtown?
I worked in economic development before I ran for office, and I know that Arizona does not have as many tools as the other states with which we compete. So we need to make sure we have this tool on the table. There's been several investments that would not have happened without it. The downtown grocery store is one. I've been very proud of representing the warehouse district, where we've seen a great growth in tech talent and creative companies. To bring housing to the warehouse district, we needed this additional tool. But I've also not been afraid to say no when it didn't make sense. There was a project called the Stewart. I think Daniel did support the tax abatement for them. I didn't. There was an apartment complex on 7th Street. Both of us opposed that one. So you do have to be judicious and say, can it happen without it? Is this going to bring forward a larger benefit that's worthwhile? As someone who's lived downtown, I know the value of bringing a grocery store downtown. So I do want to have this tool.
Okay. All right, Nicholas Sarwark, finish you.
So when they talk about a tool, what they're talking about is they want to have a bucket of money that they can use to give money to the developers and the lobbyists that contribute to their campaigns. Over the last 6 years, the giblets that the city council has given out, that 2 of my opponents have voted for, have taken $200 million out of our public schools. 3 of my 4 children, the newborn's not able to go yet, go to Phoenix Public Schools. When I see the crisis that we have in education here, when I see armies of people in red shirts going through the streets, and I see my opponents paint themselves as the education candidate when they're willing to take $200 million out of our schools, it makes me upset. We need to have a property tax that applies to everybody if we're going to have a property tax. We need to make it so it's not if you're a grocery store chain or if you're a high-rise developer. You get to not pay property tax while homeowners and Phoenix families and small business owners still pay more than their fair share to make up for what was given away by council members.
Okay, let's open this one up here. There are a couple of comments made about contributions from developers. Kate and Danny, you've both accepted campaign contributions from developers who have gotten these giblets to develop downtown. Does that influence your decision on these? Is there anything questionable about that? Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that have contributed in my campaign that believe in my vision, and it's not just developers, Dustin. I've been endorsed by teachers, police officers, firefighters, the Greater Phoenix Chamber of Commerce, working families, and so on. My point is, I've displayed the ability to bring people together to move our city forward even before getting elected. So if you want to call me, the developer's candidate, then call me the teacher's candidate. Call me the first responders candidate, and so on.
Okay, Kekaya?
So I mentioned several projects where I didn't support this tool in those cases. In both of those cases, there were people who'd contributed to my campaign, but it was the wrong thing to do this incentive there, and so I stuck to my beliefs. I'm really focused on sticking up for the little guy. So much of what I've done on the city council is try to help people who struggle to pay their parking bills, who need transportation options, who want to improve public housing. I also have fought for students. We've come up with a unique tool, which the Tempe schools might want to look at, where we do a payment in lieu of taxes and hold the elementary schools harmless, so that Phoenix Elementary School District...
Okay, we're time here. Moses, you want to jump in on
Yeah,
this?
I just want to clarify for the developer candidate that where I stand on the giblets as a tool. I'm not a fan of City Hall picking winners and losers. And if you're going to do that, you should have a standard, because they don't have a standard right now. They get to decide who gets these giblets and who doesn't, right? Here's what I would do. I would take, my standard would be, if you're a nonprofit organization, I would consider a giblet for you. If you're doing something, providing some good for quality of life issues for our community, whether it's homelessness, drug abuse, opioid abuse, these situations, I would consider give those people, have a standard. We don't have a standard right now. Right now, City Hall picks winners and losers.
Okay, good discussion on that one. Let's move on to the next round. In this round, we're going to have individual questions based on each of your campaigns and each of your candidacies. We'll start with Moses Sanchez. Moses, you're a Republican running for mayor in a city that's leaned increasingly Democratic in the last decade. Where do you find yourself fitting into the modern Republican Party that is led by President Donald Trump?
Well, I got to tell you, I'm blessed and humbled. There's 2 questions that I get asked often on this campaign trail since the very beginning. The first is what my party affiliation is. And yes, I am a Republican. The second one is, am I a legal citizen? Now, when I came to America, I was 5 years old. Ronald Reagan signed my papers, signed my visa. And to this day, it was those values that he instilled in my family, values of hard work, values of faith, values of family, that really inspired our family to grow and to do great things and live this American dream. Today, in my parents' living room, there's still two pictures, one of Jesus and below him, Ronald Reagan. So yes, I am a modern day Republican, and I talk about local issues that matter to people, and that's why I get support from across the valley, from Hispanics, African Americans, different groups throughout the valley that care about my platform, not standard partisan politics, which is what you're getting a lot at City Hall right now.
Okay, so since we're doing individualized questions, I'm going to move on to each of you, and then if at the end of these 4 questions you want to open it up, we can do that at that point, if that works for everyone. Okay, Daniel Valenzuela, moving on to you. At the last debate, you said you would continue working as a firefighter if you were elected mayor. You took a lot of flack from that, especially from your opponents. Then today you came out with this press release saying that you would not do that you would put your firefighter career on hold while you're mayor and be a full-time mayor. What explains that 180 turnaround? Why the quick change?
Well, it wasn't a quick change, Dustin. You know, I got to tell you, I did get a lot of flack from my opponents. I'm still the only candidate that actually has a jobs plan, an education plan, you know, talking about the people of Phoenix. My campaign has been about the people of Phoenix, and many times I feel like my opponent's campaign has been about my job as a firefighter. I have made it very clear from the very beginning that I would be a full-time mayor. I was a full-time council member while being a firefighter. I have taken this topic, and I don't know what they're going to talk about now, but I've taken this topic off the table. I have made a commitment that I am suspending my career. I will suspend my career as a firefighter, and I will only be the mayor of Phoenix if I'm fortunate enough to be elected. I'm curious, and I put that in writing. I'm wondering if my opponents would go that far to put in writing that they would also suspend whatever business interests they have, income they have, if they are elected.
Sorry, I want to follow up on this just because, you know, this is getting a lot of attention. People are talking about this. What changed your mind between the first debate and now about that decision to not work 2 jobs as mayor?
Well, like I said, this is something that I've been talking to my family about for quite some time. I knew it would be tough. I felt like I could handle that, being a full-time mayor and a firefighter. And again, I go to my track record. You know, no one has voted more at City Hall. I've displayed that type of work.
So what changed your mind in the last couple of weeks?
Well, my decision to actually suspend my campaign was to keep the focus on the people of Phoenix. It's not about my livelihood. It's about the livelihood of Phoenicians. My opponents continue to make their campaigns about my livelihood as a firefighter. And you know, at the end of the day, it's about moving this city forward. And I made a commitment, and I'm wondering if they would make the same commitment.
Okay, let's move on to Gallego. You've also faced some pretty sharp criticism in the last week. The Arizona Police Association, which represents police officers, they said you're falsely taking credit for this decision to start hiring more police officers and to lift the hiring freeze at City Hall. They went as far as saying that your record could be described as anti-police. Why should voters be confident you'd support law enforcement as mayor?
So there is no doubt that the city unions are supporting Daniel. He is a member of a city union, and I think that makes sense. But I will listen to everyone and work with everyone. I'm proud to have support from a wide variety of stakeholders in law enforcement, including experts at Arizona State University, retired Phoenix officers, people as individuals who lead the Block Watch Advisory Board, who lead the Phoenix Police Foundation. When I launched my campaign, the very first thing I talked about was doing more public safety hiring, but I'm also not afraid to stand up to the union and disagree. We've had some robust conversations about different reforms. I worked with Mayor Greg Stanton on civil service reforms, which means that if the police chief wants to be able to fire someone, They were, for a while, unable to do so because of some civil service processes that I was able to help change, as was Greg Stanton. Unfortunately, the union is not supporting either of our campaigns, but I still value them. I want to work with them. I will listen to them and make sure that public safety is a top priority. I'm raising my family here too. I want everyone to have safety.
Okay, we're timed there. Nicholas Sarwark, you've often spoken in your campaign, or at least several times you've spoken about this idea to cut 3 cents from every dollar spent at City Hall. You mentioned this during the last debate. Practically speaking, how would that work? How would you cut 3 cents from every dollar? And when you say every dollar, does that include everything, our police and fire on the table as well?
Yeah, so I'm glad somebody's talking about the issue. So the city of Phoenix takes in $4 billion every year. This last year they brought in $4 billion. They spend $500 million last year on debt service. 1 out of every $8 the city brings in goes to pay debt for money that's been borrowed from the future that our children will have to pay for. When we can't make hard choices now, we want to pull that money into the future. It happened just today, or yesterday at City Hall. They slowed this extension to Paradise Valley so they could borrow against the future, adding another $15 million a year in interest. When you're using your credit card to pay a utility bill, and then you're using another credit card to pay that credit card, and another credit card to pay that credit card, you will never get out of that cycle. That's what our city's done. The way that you get our city back on track is we have to start spending what we bring in and no more.
Okay. All right, let's open this up. Who wants to jump in here? Any thoughts on the answers your opponents gave here? Everyone's good?
Excuse me. Well, I just well, I want to make it clear, when you look at the types of things that I've been working on at City Hall and those who are coming out to support my campaign, again, Greater Phoenix Chamber of Commerce and labor organizations. It wasn't easy to get both police and fire, by the way. But the point is, you have people who care about this city, who are coming together. It is a nonpartisan race. I hear Moses at the end talk about the importance of not playing into party politics. I think he's the only one up here that actually has his party affiliation on his sign.
Sorry, we're timed here. But Moses, do you want to respond to that?
I'd love to respond. Yes, like I said, 2 questions I get asked. What my party affiliation? I put it on the sign. I actually like the transparency. I think we need more transparency at City Hall. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of transparency. And with regards to Mr. Valenzuela, he's a nice guy. I only question his commitment. I do. I question his commitment. He talks about making commitments. He made a commitment to fully finish his term. He didn't do that. He made a commitment that he was going to be a full-time firefighter and a full-time mayor, and now he changed his mind. The only questions I have regarding his candidacy and campaign is his commitment.
Daniel, you want to respond?
I don't think I'm going to have Moses' vote in this go around, but hopefully in the runoff I will. But so I will. I'm not sure what you mean about my term. If you mean I resigned to run for mayor, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, Moses. But
do you want to clarify?
Sure. He actually, when he first ran for city council, he questioned one of his opponents on using the city council as a stepping stone. And he said that he would never do that, that he will fill his obligation as a city council member. Well, he didn't do that. He resigned to run for higher office, to run for mayor.
Well, what Moses is not, I don't know if you misread it, Moses. I'm not sure if you're aware, but this was a 4-year term. I said that I would fulfill my term, and I did that. I actually fulfilled my 4-year term. Moses, or were you confused on that one?
Actually, you didn't, because we just appointed a city council member in your seat. If you had actually had that, we wouldn't have to appoint somebody in your seat.
Moses is talking about a quote from 7 years ago when I was running in 2011. I was elected and I fulfilled my term, and leave it to someone like Moses to grab something like that and try to apply it into this race.
Okay, we're going to move on from that round. This next round, let's talk about ethics at City Hall. Almost 2 years ago, the City Council voted to create an independent ethics commission. The City of Phoenix has never had that. The city has never had a body that can enforce ethics rules for the mayor and the City Council. 2 years later, that commission has still not been seated. And that comes as there's been multiple ethical scandals at City Hall. There's been at least 2 attorney general's investigations, possibly more, in the last few years. Will you pledge as mayor to follow through on this commitment and create a city ethics commission? We'll start with Kate Gallego.
Absolutely, it needs to be a priority. I've tried to lead on issues of transparency and ethics, including trying to end double standards for elected officials. In August, the voters of Phoenix overwhelmingly approved a proposition which I put forward that made sure that if elected officials behave badly, commit harassment, that they can be voted off the council. Your friends at the state legislature had that ability, and we didn't at the city of Phoenix, so I moved that forward. I've also put forward a ballot initiative that will be on the ballot this November, Proposition 419, which will require disclosure of all contributions in city elections. I want transparency. I want people to understand what's happening at city council, to be able to have conversations, and to hopefully have people confident what we're doing at the city of Phoenix.
Okay, Nicholas Sarwark.
Absolutely, I would fully implement the ethics board. I think that city government is not trusted. They are not trusted to be good stewards of our money because they spend it unwisely and they keep coming back and adding new taxes on us. One of the things that happens is there's an expectation. I mean, let's just put this out on the table. The job of mayor pays less than 88 grand a year. And two of my opponents up here have raised over $1 million, often from big developers, for that job. I think that that's because those developers and those lobbyists know what they're going to get. And so if we had an ethics board that would look at things such as, are you making votes on contracts for a big utility when you have some sort of relationship with someone from a big utility? Are you taking contributions and then are your votes associated? Are adjustment board hearings going one way if one lobbyist or one lawyer is representing a party, but not the other way? Those sort of ethics investigations need to happen, and they need to happen now.
Moses Sanchez.
Yeah, we have a lot of problems with transparency at City Hall, and that trust factor is a serious one. You've seen it in South Phoenix, but you know what? You also seen it in other parts of the district. You hear it in Maryvale, you hear it in Sunny Slope, you hear it all throughout our city, where folks just don't trust what our city officials are doing. The fact that we haven't had an ethics committee in 2 years should tell you something. That's embarrassing. It really is. And where's the leadership been? I mean, we have well over a decade's worth of experience at City Hall here right now. Where's the leadership been? It's not present. We can do much better. We will do better.
Daniel Valenzuela.
Absolutely. I would pass the ethics committee. It's something that I have also pushed for, and Kate also did as well. I'll say that a couple of things that Kate mentioned, I actually second the motion on those types of those two items. Speaking of the ethics committee, Rick Romley, who's just been a champion when it comes to ethics and forming that, has come out about 2 weeks ago and has endorsed my campaign because he knows that this is at the top of my list.
Okay, let's open up the floor on ethics. Who wants to jump in? Any follow-ups here? There were certainly some allusions made to activity in City Hall. Kate or Danny, anything you want to say about the descriptions that we heard about relationships with developers, potential conflicts of interest at City Hall?
Well, the campaign finance laws are pretty clear. I'm not sure where the accusations come from. Everything is online. We made it a point. I actually helped lead on this issue to make it a point to make sure that those types of things are online. Anyone in Phoenix can actually Google it and figure out where our finance records are, what we're spending the money on, who's giving to each candidate, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that question? Okay.
I guess I would
Kate Gallego.
maybe speak a little bit about fundraising. I am really proud that many people across our community have supported my campaign. It's a lot of small business owners. There's also been some significant national interest. None of the 10 largest cities have a female mayor, and so I have gotten some donors from across the country who think that they'd like to see that change and that I have a good chance of changing it, that Phoenix is a welcoming community where people can win public office regardless of their background and gender. So if I do not replace Thelda Williams as a mayor, then none of the 10 largest cities will have a female mayor.
Moses?
Dustin, I mean, the ethics situation is just one example. The sexual harassment situation is another example. I mean, you guys did an amazing story with a gentleman named John Wayne Gonzalez, 18 years at City Hall. 18 years sexually harassing women at City Hall. 18 years. And the worst part wasn't just that that was happening at City Hall, but everybody in City Hall and in other cities around us knew about it. Where was the leadership? Where were the ethics? Where are the folks? Where's the transparency?
Nicholas, you want to add anything to this?
I think the citizens of Phoenix are smart enough to figure this out. I mean, you can look at who supports candidates and what those candidates actually do. They made it a priority to take $200 million out of our school system in order to give those to big developers in property tax breaks. They didn't make it a priority to fill the ethics committee. I mean, you got to judge politicians based on what they do, not what they say.
Okay, unfortunately, we're getting to our last question here. We've run out of time for all the questions I was hoping to ask. But our last question, I want to talk about relationships inside of City Hall. Tense relations within the City Council has been a source of embarrassment for the city in the last couple of years. Few city insiders remember a time where there have been elected officials who so regularly and bitterly clash at public meetings. Can you please name one sitting City Council member whose leadership style you admire, and tell us why you admire them? And let's start with Moses Sanchez.
Well, I would say that I have a very unique leadership experience. Like I said before, 22 years, United States Navy. I've been doing a lot of things, leading a lot of different groups and diverse individuals. So my leadership style is a little unique and a little different than folks at City Hall. If I had to pick one person there, I would probably say Jim Waring. That Jim Waring he's very accessible. He's out in the community. He talks to a lot of voters, and he's knocking on a lot of doors when he's out there. And not just when he was running for office, but even afterward. And I admire that in a leader.
Okay, let's go to Kate Gallego.
So I'm going to agree with Moses. I do admire Jim Waring's leadership style. He is out in the community talking to people. I find him easy to work with. He is very consistent about what he believes and how he's going to vote. It is often not the same perspective that I have, but I understand where he's coming from, and we've been able to work together on issues. I talked about the harassment vote that the public overwhelmingly approved. He was a partner with me on that, and we were able to get it done. So, yes, I'm going to agree with Moses.
Nicholas Sarwark.
You know, part of the reason I'm running for mayor is I watched City Hall. I watched, one of my opponents was my council member, and I watched the partisan sniping back and forth. That's why I wanted to come to City Hall with the perspective of not playing for either team, of not having been involved in that sniping, of not having any bad blood or any favors that I owed to anybody in there. For once, Phoenicians should have a mayor who is basically the referee for those 9 people on the council, who's wearing stripes instead of red or blue.
Okay, so you can't name one person,
I mean,
not one of the 8.
I admire the way Thelda Williams was able to try and get control back after making a terrible policy choice, but she tries to keep everybody on the same track. And I think that that's a very important skill, even if, you know, in the face of overwhelming opposition for attacks on sick people, she still tried to keep it together, and that kind of attitude of helping people work together is what I want to bring to City Hall.
Daniel Valenzuela.
I think that we have several that we can choose from, frankly. There are people who truly care about our city. Thelda Williams, you take the policy decisions out, because we can all, as someone who's on that council, I didn't agree 100% with everyone on that council. Thelda cares about this place, cares about infrastructure. She was the infrastructure champion, is the infrastructure champion on that council. Then I think of Laura Pastor, who's a very good friend, an educator. I think of Vanya Guevara, my successor, a good friend and someone whose she has a heart for service. And Deborah Stark, who does her homework probably more than anyone on that council.
Okay, before we go to closing statements, we're going to take a quick break, so stay with us. We'll be back in a couple of minutes, and you'll want to see how this ends. Okay. All right, I think we're going to do about 3 to 4 minutes. So if you need to
Well, we started taking a look at how charter schools run, how they're operated, and their finances, because they've just exploded. Charter schools have about 16% of the state's population for kids. They get about 27% of the state education funding. They play by a completely different set of rules. They may go out and hire private companies to run their schools, and a lot of times those private companies are the same people who founded the schools. Basis does have great academic scores here in Arizona, but they also spend their money in a very interesting way. The founders set up another company, which also is named Basis, and they get a pretty big chunk of money, multi-millions of dollars of tax dollars that go to this company. Another way that charter operators make money is building their own schools, American Leadership Academy. Their founder, Glenn Way, founded the schools, recruited kids to those schools, and grew it so much, he started building his own schools for his campuses. We calculate he made over $30 million on selling schools back to his own charter schools. He said the profits were closer to $18 million. Parents clearly during the last several years have made a choice to take their kids out of district schools and put them in charter schools. It's public money, it's their money, and they should know how that money is being spent.
Your life is complicated, but AZ Central is here to help find answers, to help solve problems, to make your life better. We're here to help.
Welcome back. We'll now hear 1 minute closing statements. We'll start with Moses Sanchez. When we gave intro statements, we inadvertently gave Moses a bad time cue, and so he lost 30 seconds. So we're, in the interest of fairness, we're going to give him an extra 30 seconds for his closing statement. So Moses Sanchez, minute 30 seconds.
Thank you, Dustin. Thank you for watching today. I hope you learned something from watching the candidates up here. I think there's a clear choice when it comes to who should be leading the next mayor, who the next mayor should be. If you think that the failed, dysfunctional leadership of the last decade is the best that we can do as a city, as the 5th largest city, then I'm not your candidate. See, I believe we can do better. I believe we can create a city that represents her residents, that fights for her citizens. I believe you deserve better than what you've been getting. I believe that it's going to take an outsider, someone who's led in the military, in the classroom, and in the boardroom. And if you agree with me, I hope you vote Moses Sanchez for Mayor of Phoenix.
And then we'll do Gallego.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching us and being part of the mayoral election for the city of Phoenix. I'm very proud of the city we live in. I believe it's one of the fastest growing cities in the country because it is a great place to live. It's been wonderful to work alongside Mayor Greg Stanton and the Phoenix City Council to make the City Council even better, and I believe I have the record and the preparation to take the city to the next level. I've been a consistent leader. I didn't need to take a poll to know that I wanted to be a full-time mayor of City Council, a full-time mayor of Phoenix. I've been able to give clear answers on issues like, what am I going to do about the water crisis that we are in on the Colorado River, and clear answers, not changing my position on issues like the arena. You need that from your next mayor of Phoenix. I'm looking forward to leading. It is a great city in an exciting time. I've been able to get things done, often unanimously at the Phoenix City Council, and I feel ready to go forward and build a great city to raise your family, my family, for people to retire in, and for our entire community to thrive.
Daniel Valenzuela.
Thank you. The mayor of Phoenix must be a coalition builder and a problem solver, and I've done that. Working with my colleagues to expand educational opportunities, to bring high-wage jobs to Phoenix, to lift the hiring freeze for our first responders. By working with my colleagues, we got those things done. We have more work to do. I've been honored to, I am honored to be the only member of this panel to be supported by multiple members of the Phoenix City Council, the current council, and 3 former mayors, Skip Brimza, Paul Johnson, and Phil Gordon. I now ask you for your support and your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
And finally, Nicholas Sarwark.
Thank you for watching tonight. This race is more important than anything that's happening in Washington. As a small business owner, I bring a perspective to this race. I know how to balance a checkbook. I know how to live within the means that we have. Your city government is spending your money. They're spending your children's money. They are putting your children into debt because they can't deal with the obligations we have now. They're picking between the communities that get tax breaks and get extra services and the communities that pay for them. This needs to be a city where anyone can come here and build a dream just like my grandfather did. I want my children to be able to build those dreams. And the way we do that is we treat all of Phoenix equally. All 518 square miles deserves respect. It deserves core city services, and we need to stop handing out tax money to big developers downtown. We need to stop robbing our public schools of funding by giving out big breaks. And if you want that, please vote Nicholas Sarwark on November 6th.
Well, that concludes our debate tonight. Thank you to all the candidates for joining us. Tune in Tuesday night for a debate with the candidates running for Arizona Corporation Commission, and stay tuned to azcentral.com for all the latest updates on this race and all the races on the ballot this year. Thank you to all of you, and good night.